What is going on, everybody? It's Lay the House RM here, sharing my daily fantasy and sports betting picks and plays for NFL Week 2. It's Thursday. Tonight we have the Bills and the Dolphins. It's going to be a really good game tonight. I've got a few plays out there already that I will share with you guys in this video. And then we're also going to take a first look at some of the plays on Sunday, even make a few entries as well. And I'll share some trends with you guys on these plays that I found for Sunday already. This video is mainly focused for Underdog Fantasy. There's a little bit of Prizepicks mixed in, but it's mainly Underdog focused. So if you don't play on Underdog, but you want to sign up for them, sign up using the code LayTheHouseRM, and they'll give you a deposit match bonus up to $1,000. So that's one of the better deposit bonuses out there, and it's free money when you deposit, so you might as well just give it a shot and try to cash in on the extra cash that they give you. So we're going to look at Underdog here, and we're going to be seeing if they have any promos for us right now. They do have a CeeDee Lamb gimme pick of higher than 2.5 total yards. I will have a play with that. I'll probably post it in the Discord later on this weekend. So if you're not in the Discord yet, it's free to join. The link is in the description below. It's a great place to be. It's one of the only totally free sports betting Discords out there. So that's why it's one of the best Discords in the world when it comes to sports betting. There was another promo on Underdog Fantasy that I used already. It was a 30% profit boost for just today. So I used it actually on a play tonight in the Bills-Dolphins game that I'll share with you guys later on in the video. First, let's just take a look at the Discord server because that's where my normal sports betting picks are, like the spreads and the totals, and that's where I posted them already. I also posted them on Twitter, so if you don't follow me on Twitter, you probably missed out on those. But heading over to the Discord, I only have a few NFL Week 2 picks so far. So we're going with Raiders plus 8.5, Giants plus 2.5 and the money line, Browns plus 3 in the money line, Bengals plus 5, Steelers versus Broncos under 36.5, and then the Eagles minus 6.5 on Monday Night Football. That's all my regular bets for the NFL. I'm not going to touch on those too much in this video because it's mainly daily fantasy focused. So let's head back over to Underdog Fantasy and see what I have out there already. So if I go into the live tab and go to champions, you see I have a handful of NFL plays. I have a streak going as well. I'm 5 deep on it, and then an esports play going on at the moment as well, which really doesn't have much relevance to the video. But I've placed 3 plays so far. I'm going to go into each one of these plays, how I found each one of these props in each one of these entries, and kind of how I allocate my money and just the right strategies to play in Underdog Fantasy. So the first one we're going to go with, it's actually a play just for tonight. It's the middle play I placed here. We're going with Tyreek Hill, higher than 17.95 fantasy points, and Khalil Shakir, higher than 7.55 fantasy points. It's a 30% profit boost. This is the one that I used the boost on. It's a $50 entry, so I maxed out whatever the boost was allowing me to do, because that's the most positive EV thing to do. Whenever you get a boost like that or a free pick, you just do the max, because you're never going to find a value as good as you are in these scenarios. So what I do is I head over to Outlier.bet, and I filter on their prop screen. So I would click props. I'd filter for, Underdog Fantasy. I'd filter the odds to minus 130 to minus 115 because I don't want to see any of the alt lines here. And then I sort by 2024 to see who hit last week. And I try to find plays that have like a really good hit rate last week comparing to the last year as well. So if we go into my tickets here, the first play I had was this Tyreek Hill over 17.95 fantasy score. You see, he's gone over this number in 6 out of his last 10 games, which really isn't that impressive. Looking at last year, 11 out of 17, which is okay as well. 2 games against the Bills last year, 1 time under, 1 time over. But the trend that really stood out to me, if we filter it even further and only look at home games for Tyreek Hill, 8 out of his last 9 home games, he has gone over 17.95 fantasy score. That's a trend that I want to ride, including his matchup with the Bills last year where he went 21.2. He's likely going to need a touchdown to go over this fantasy score or just like a massive receiving day because Underdog Fantasy is 0.5 point PPR. So like if he had like 5 receptions for like 125 yards, that's still not enough to go over. That would be 15 or so points. You really need the touchdown with Tyreek Hill or like a massive yardage day of like 150 yards for him to go over this number. But following the trend, I think it's a really good play tonight, and especially with the profit boost. The second play that I had with the profit boost was Khalil Shakir over on the fantasy score as well. As many of you probably know, Stephon Diggs is gone. He's not there anymore. Josh Allen does not have as many people to throw the ball to. It's got Shakir. He has Curtis Samuel, who wasn't too involved in the offense. Dalton Kincaid, who he didn't throw much to last week. Dawson Knox. Like, his options are pretty limited. So I guess Shakir is probably the de facto, wide receiver 1 or 2 on the team right now. And even going back to last year, his last 10 games, he has gone over on the fantasy score number in 7 out of his last 10, including last week against Arizona. He did need a touchdown to go over this number, but even without the touchdown 6 points. He had 7.2 without the touchdown last week, so that would almost be at the over number as well. Head-to-head against the Dolphins last year, one game he really wasn't involved with at all. Not sure if he even played, but his other game against the Dolphins, 16.5 fantasy score. I'm expecting a pretty big shootout tonight, so hopefully both these plays go over, and it's correlated as well. So, if, Miami gets out to an early lead, Buffalo's likely going to be throwing and coming back, kind of similar to last week, with Buffalo getting down early against Arizona and then just blowing them away and then letting Arizona come back, and then Josh Allen just taking over. So, and Dolphins, they're always going to throw the ball. They're just, they're a mess. Sometimes they're the best team in the league. They'll drop 70 points, and other times they just look terrible, and Tua is forced to throw the ball more, and Tyreek Hill is their best option. So that's one play I had here. Next play that I made for tonight, and it's including next week as well. So we're going with Tua lower on the fantasy score, CJ Stroud lower on interceptions, and Josh Allen higher on the rushing receiving touchdowns. So we'll go through these plays as well. Heading back to Outlier. So first, we'll keep going with tonight's game. Tua Tagovailoa under on the fantasy score. I know this is a negative correlation to Tyreek Hill's fantasy score, but a Tyreek Hill, like I said, he just needs a touchdown or he can get a hell of yards and get over that number. Tua has gone under 18.65 fantasy points in 9 out of his last 10 games. The one time he went over, he barely went over. He had 19.2. You can see he hovers kind of close to that 18.65 number pretty often, so I don't think it's going to be a no-sweat winner by any means, and especially with the game that might shoot out tonight with the Bills. It's kind of scary, but following the last 10 games trend, he has gone under in 9 of his last 10, including both matchups against the Bills last year, 14.98 and 9.62. Looking at the full season last year, it was about 67% of the time. He got really hot early on in the season, then he kind of trailed off. I think the Dolphins are going to follow along with this trend here just last 8 or 9 weeks, because that seems to be the way that Mike McDaniel wants to run his offense. It's kind of similar to how he did last year. They didn't have as much success, and Tua is just really hit or miss. But I think going under on this number following this last 10 games is a really good trend. Next play I had here was the other play tonight, Josh Allen over 0.5 touchdowns. This one's self-explanatory. He has to run or receive a touchdown. Most likely he's going to run one in or sneak one in. 8 out of his last 10 games, including multiple touchdowns last week against the Arizona Cardinals. In the matchup against Miami last year, one time out of the 2 games, he ran one in. Obviously, in the first game, shootout a bit more than the second game, but he did run in a touchdown last year against the Dolphins. And then on the full season last year, 14 out of 19 games. So, it's a really strong trend. You're getting it at about 15.5% implied probability, when really over two-thirds of the time he's running or catching a touchdown in the game. So, good value on the Josh Allen prop. And then my last play on this entry, my old reliable. I cashed so many slips on this last week and last year. I'm honestly surprised that they're leaving this line how it is. I would expect them to maybe make it a scorcher at some point, where it's like a 0.8 payout instead of a regular 1 payout on CJ Stroud under 0.5 interceptions. But he's played in, 18 career games? 17 games last year, 1 game last week, so 18 career games. He's only thrown an interception in 3 out of the 18 games. Now, last week, he actually did throw 2 interceptions, but both of them were on penalties, so he didn't have any on the stat sheet. But just, he gave me a little bit of a heart attack there, throwing a couple interceptions, some pretty bad reads on a couple of these plays. But following the trend, he's a guy who normally takes care of the ball. The Bears, they really relied on their defense last week, but they were against Will Levis. CJ Stroud is much better than Will Levis, so I think he's going to be a bit more careful with the ball. I'm going to keep riding this trend up until they remove the line from us. So CJ Stroud, under 0.5 interceptions, always one of my favorite plays every single week. And then my last play that I made on Underdog Fantasy early on in the week, we're going with Jason Myers, higher than 6.5 kicking points, Ezekiel Elliott, lower than 11.5 rushing yards, and Matthew Stafford, higher than 35.5 on his longest completion. Heading back to Outlier, we'll see these plays here. So Jason Myers, over 6.5 kicking points, 8 out of his last 10 games. I don't really need to go too much into detail about that, but he had 8 last week against Denver. maybe the Patriots are going to have that bend don't break defense with Gerard Mayo coaching, but we'll see. But Geno Smith, not the best in the red zone, so that's why Jason Myers usually gets a lot of kicking points. Second play, Matthew Stafford over 35.5 on his longest completion. Obviously, Puka Nacua is on the PUP now on the IR, so he's going to be out 4 weeks. But, Cooper Kupp getting a 35-yard completion is not out of the ordinary. With the Rams, you have two options at a long completion. You have, Stafford arrowing out about 35 yards, or you have one that catch and runs, which is probably the most likely scenario, like a screen or like an end around or some little, shifty play where they're just going to get one of the receivers in space and just let him go. Even like Tyler Johnson, that guy who came out of nowhere last week, he had a reception that was over 35 yards. So I think there's a lot of value in this play. Obviously, 7 out of his last 10 games, he went over this number. He's got so many options, and even the 3 games where he didn't go over this number, 32, 32, and 34. So he's going to be right there regardless. So really strong play on Matt Stafford. And then my final play, old and dusty, Ezekiel Elliott, under 11.5 rushing yards. Last 10 games, 7 out of his last 10, he was gone under. Even when he goes over, it's 12 or 13 on his longest rush. He is just not the same as what he was. He had the one game last year where he had a 17-yard rush against the Dolphins, but he's dusty at this point. He's against the Saints, pretty strong front four. Last year, he had an 8-yard rush against the Saints. So, honestly, old and dusty Ezekiel Elliott, just keep riding this trend. He's still going to get some volume, like he is technically the RB1 still, but Dallas loves to pass the ball. He had 10 attempts last week. I'd say 10 to 14 attempts is probably his range on most games. Dallas blew him out last week, and he still only had 10 attempts. I think he's dusty. I don't think he's getting over 11.5 rushing yards on a single rush. He just, barrel right into the defensive line. He's good in those short yardage scenarios, but he's not going to break one out long like he used to. So hopefully you guys found some of this information valuable and you could use it with your plays for the NFL this week. Like I said, I'll probably go live here on YouTube either Friday or Saturday, and we'll come up with some more plays. I'll be using Outlier.bet. If you want to give Outlier a shot, this is the site where I've been showing you guys all the trends. They do offer, I think it's a 7-day free trial, so there is a link in the pinned comment below. Just click the link and sign up, and I believe they'll give you a 7-day free trial if you want to give it a shot for the NFL this week. So I'm using Outlier every single day. I'm also using a few other tools like, Daily Grind Fantasy and OddsJam as well, and even OddsShopper. So there's so many tools out there. My suggestion, try them all, figure out which one works best for you, and then, stick to one of them if you wanted to. All these tools are there to help you. They're not just trying to sell you bullshit. I wouldn't sell you bullshit. I just kind of show you guys what I use every single day, and I'm trying to help you all. That's what we do in the Discord server. That's why we have a really good community out there. So hopefully we could all have a really good week. So best of luck on your plays this week, and I appreciate you guys sticking around and watching.